All right, well, let's get on the tarmac and head off to our first waypoint, which is the Gap, which is the main entry and thoroughfare to get in and out of Alice Springs from the north and the south. We'll fly over that and over the town, and then we'll go off to waypoint 2. Now the gap we're flying to is the gap in the McDonnell Ranges. In fact, if you're flying towards the gap now, the right-hand side is the East McDonnell Ranges, and they run about probably about 160 miles to the east. And on the left-hand side of the gap is the West McDonnell Ranges, which we'll be flying on today, and they run about the same distance, about 150 miles to the west. And I know they're about, I think they've been dated geologically to about 400 to 500 million years old. Now through the gap here, as there's the main thoroughfare in and out, you've got the Stewart Highway, you've got the railway line, and you've got the Todd River. Now the Todd River is interesting. Most of the time it's an actually just dry riverbed. It's very seldom they have water in it. You know, it's a real big occasion when the Todd River's got water in it. It's every few years, but every year they have a big regatta on Todd, a big boat race on the Todd River. So it's a real fun affair, lots of beer drunk, and everybody has their own made, right? Yeah, everybody has their own made boats where there's no bottom, and they all, you know, have teams of people all hop inside them, hold on the sides, and run for the dear life to see who can win. Great spectacle. So this, I'm just going over the gap, or through the gap now. And as soon as you come through, you'll see the main town of Alice Springs, and it's situated almost dead centre in Australia. In the very early days, the telegraph office and the police station were also located at the gap, because if they were trying to, the police, if they're trying to find somebody and they're coming through on camel trains or horse and wagons, they'd have to come through the gap, and that was an easy place to grab them. Alice Springs at the moment is unfortunately in the news. The last year or so they've had a major youth and gang violence issue. Lots of young kids, and unfortunately the police can't really do much with them if they're under about 14 years old. So really run riot. We even had our Prime Minister make a visit probably 6 months ago up here as a token gesture of understanding the issue. Okay, we'll now head off to waypoint 2. That's a very interesting place, and it's the Australian USA Joint Spy Satellite Network. Very much a restricted area. You're definitely not allowed to fly over. We will, but it's got 38 what's called radomes, and the strategic significance of this is it's the eyes and ears. Well, the ears really for the US, because it really covers in great depth China, Russia, and the Middle East, which are three pretty strategic and interesting regions for the US. But it is a joint Australian facility. About 800 people work there, so it's a reasonable size, and security is dead hot on it, and there's no way known we could even be this close to it in the air, and we'll fly right over it. There's a big restricted area if you look on the charts. Funny story, one year I was flying 4 couples around, 8 of them, and so I had a mate flying a plane with half of them in as well, and I got one of the passengers who was also a pilot from the States, and I got him to basically do like a Alice Springs Tower call to him, and I basically wrote him what he's saying. Basically, I was saying, hey, and he was in one of my other planes, Bravo Uniform Juliet. I was saying to him basically, hey, look, you've just, please report straight back to Alice Springs. You've just encroached on the restricted airspace of Pine Gap. And he shit himself. He really did. And we finally let on, and for the rest of the tour, he never talked to me. It really, really unsettled him. And so far, I've done quite good at, doing some photogrammetry here. You'll see also there's a big perimeter that goes around all the radomes. Now, I don't know what that's obviously a security perimeter. I don't know if it's electrified wire fence with mines in between or what, but they are very tight on security here. So I used to do a air safari out of Melbourne up into the Birdsville Races, which is a corner of, it's in Queensland and a corner of Northern Territory in South Australia. And we'd always, after the Birdsville race, we'd fly across the Simpson into Alice, and then we'd continue on all the way back to Melbourne. This would be one of the legs. And when they're here, we're in the hotel here, I'd organise a hire car and we'd drive out to the next two places, which is Standley Chasm and Ormiston Gorge. It was an all-day affair, really. By the time we got back from Ormiston Gorge, it was normally after dark, which was a problem because in those days you couldn't get insurance on your hire cars after dark, because the tendency for people to run into camels, cattle, or kangaroos after dark and smash the cars up.
Nice little thin crescent moon up there, straight ahead of us.
I can tell you if you ever want to do this trip again, do it after dark. The sky, up here there's no radiant light being thrown in by cities and stuff like that. The sky is absolutely just a beautiful deep blue with just millions of white stars in it in the sim, and they do a great job. So it's a brilliant time to fly at night time along here. And the topography is still well lit up just by the moon. It's only 3 meters wide, 80 meters high. It was carved by just flooding and normal erosion of the Fink River that passed through it.
Landing gear.
One of the great things, you go for a walk, it takes about a 15-minute walk to get to the chasm from the car park, is it's got a very healthy population of rock wallabies, and they're beautiful little wallabies, and you'll see them just perching up on rock ledges above you as you're walking, just watching down on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the turbulence effect over the mountains is great.
Oh, you're gonna fall in love with your chair, mate. I can tell you.
This is actually the longest I've flown in it. I've spent so much time fiddling around with the damn thing, I haven't actually used it.
And we're now off to Ormiston Gorge, which was, as I said, I used to always drive them out for a day tour. So it'd be Standley Chasm for lunch and an afternoon walk. And then we'd drive further out here to Ormiston Gorge. If it was hot enough, we'd have a swim, though for some reason the water hole, it's almost a permanent water hole, which is unusual out here. The water is just so cold, even in the summertime. Quite serious. You're staying overnight in a tent, and it's over $4,000 a night.
Oh really? $4,000.
Oh, yeah. We'll fly over it, and in the last 5 minutes of the flight, we'll fly over it.
I'd
we'll
want Margot Robbie
serving
me dinner. I want Margot Robbie there serving me dinner for that price.
Yeah. Right. By the way, guys, we're coming into Ormiston Gorge, and we are going to land. There's no strip there. So as I said, I'm going off story for this one, but you know me, we've got to land sometimes off strip. So we're going to land at waypoint 4, and then we'll just go and have a look at the screenshots for Ormiston Gorge. It's a magical place, and what's really nice about it, around the almost permanent water hole, I have seen it once almost dried up, is these beautiful ghost gums. If you haven't seen a ghost gum, just go on go on Google and Google ghost gums. They're real smooth white barked trunk tree, and at night time with the moonlight they really shine out, and that's why they call them ghost gums, because they're just really highlighted at night time.
Yeah, they're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, and just It's a beautiful number of ghost gums around this area. Once we land, have a look in the not screenshots, in the pictures. Here comes Triton. Yeah, Triton's down safely and pulled up nicely just in front of me. And next in is Airshow. Yeah, we'd arrive in here probably about 3 in the afternoon. We'd have probably a couple of hours here, and normally by about 6 o'clock it's getting dark this time of year, and we'd always get back to Alice later, so I had a swivel ahead all the way back in. It was a couple of hour drive back in, and I had all the passengers in the cars too also watching everywhere, because you hit a camel at night, it really can ruin your whole life. Camels will tend to get up and walk away and you're dead. Well, I don't know if you guys realise, but Australia has got the most purebred camels in the world, and we actually export camels to Saudi Arabia. And we're going to be landing in a camel station later on, cattle and camel station. Oh, a little funny story here. The ranger station has a little tourist kiosk when going. There's all sort of, touristy type artifacts and whatnot. And there's one that's called the Feely box. It's a bit like it's a box with a round hole in it, a bit like a bird box. And you put your hand in, and you got to feel what it is. And had a girl once put her hand in, and it was a real furry feel, and she almost screamed when she actually touched it. I don't know why, but she wasn't expecting that. But the next one is Helen, it's called Glen Helen Gorge. I'm going to say St. Glen Helen Gorge, and it's got a tourist resort here, a fairly low-key tourist resort. The beautiful thing is just the gorge, and once again when we land, and we are going to land here. Sorry, Oz, if you haven't got your, just do a long slow approach.
Yeah, I will.
And you'll see there's water in this. Again, it's the Fink River that's running through there. And again, it's just the gorge has been cut by the river. And just a beautiful spot. And when we land, have a look at the pictures. There's only 2, I think. In fact, I took those pictures in 2015 with my first drone. I think one of the shadows, you can just see an outline of the drone. Very, very rudimentary drone I had. The interesting thing about this place is in July of this year, they actually closed the resort temporarily because there's no potable water here, and the closest is a bore water from 18 kilometres away, but it just became prohibitive trucking the water in because they need some stupid amount of water per day, like 30,000 litres or something a day. So until they can get a pipeline and put in, which they think will be the solution, they've had to close the resort because they just can't afford the water. It's become uneconomical to truck the water in. And it's landing just again. We're going to pull up right next to, you'll see like a shed structure. Satellites on the top, and it looks like shearing sheds and shearers' quarters over the back here, but that in fact is the resort and tourist cafe. You can also get some fuel here as well. Fuel in the outback here is very expensive. You can easily pay double or more than what you're paying in like Melbourne or Sydney. How'd you go getting in here, Oz? You coming in?
Yeah, I was going off track because I was trying to get onto your pictures channel, but I'm coming back around now.
Yeah, wait till you land. Give yourself. Right, we'll get out of here and we'll continue on westward towards Gosse Bluff. Oh, get out of drone mode.
Yep.
Well, westward.
Yeah, I just ordered my PC, which I'll probably be hopefully picking up late next week.
Oh, very good.
So then I'll be on PC.
Yeah, that's the one I shot reset off for a quick squiz, wasn't it? The spec.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And thank you for looking at that reset.
Did you end up deciding to go with a NVIDIA card?
No, I'm sticking with the 7900 XTX, mainly because it's such a good bang for buck.
I'll just jump in here, guys. You're flying over these sort of folding ranges at the moment, and after Gosse Bluff, there'll be a couple of pictures which we'll do an active pause and have a quick look at, and you'll see pictures of just exactly what they look like in real life. If you're at altitude anywhere near me, if you look ahead, you'll start to see Gosse Bluff. Can anybody see it on their nose ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an outcropping. Yeah.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, I can see the outcropping.
Gosse Bluff, they reckon just over 140 million years ago, a huge comet impacted here. And this is the impact crater. It's 20 kilometres across. It's a sacred Aboriginal site. Again, most sites up here are. It was named after the early explorer and fellow of the Royal Society called Gosse, who was also an outback explorer. But again, the only way really to see this is from the air to get a good appreciation from it. So we'll fly over and do an orbit around.
Well, I was kind of fascinated by this terrain right underneath me, the white sands or whatever they are. This is interesting looking.
Oh, you get all different colours. You get the whites and the real deep red ochres, and then a bit of vegetation here and there. Yeah, the colours in I mean, people say, "Oh, you're flying over desert," but the deserts are just magical. You know, the colour palette is just beautiful.
Well, tell me, how does this fare against the real thing? Does this look pretty good? Pretty close to it?
Yes, they've done a very good job. One of the excellent jobs they've done is if you fly over the Simpson Desert, which is the biggest and the most arid desert in the world, well, not the biggest, but the most arid desert in the world, the sand dunes there run for hundreds, each one runs for hundreds of miles, and they're north-south, but they're so big and permanent that anybody knows what a whack chart is. They are actually lines on the whack chart. But it's just like flying about 3 hours over a Red Sea of rolling waves. Just magical. And that's just to the east of Alice Springs, if you want to fly over the Simpson Desert. But I'm at about 7.5 here, and yeah, the higher you are pH, the much better view you'll get of the impact crater. And originally when the comet struck, the hole was 2 kilometres deep, the crater, but over time you get erosion wearing down the rims, and also, you know, just sand that filling up the bottom, so it's nowhere near 2 kilometres deep now, but at time of impact it was. Actually, there was an interesting article in the newspaper the other day in Australia. In New South Wales, they believe they've now found the biggest ever meteorite crater, but it's totally underground now because, you know, erosion or movement or whatever. But they believe it's something like a magnitude of the size of the meteor that knocked out all the dinosaurs. They reckon it's the biggest impact crater in the world. Yeah, but they're doing all seismic measurement and evaluation because it's all underground. I don't know how that works, but yeah, big news this week. But yeah, what am I flying at? I'm at 7.5 roughly, and yeah, you get a very good appreciation of the size and what it did.
Are you all flying the standard King or the black square King Air?
Standard King Air.
Yeah, cool.
All right, let me see. Those guys down lower, still getting a good view of it, are you?
Looks just like your picture there, Gunny.
Yeah. Yeah, have a look. You can do an active pause if you want to, or if you're not in VR, you can see it. Yeah, my picture is, again, that was probably taken back in the very early 90s with an old Kodak camera. We had to get developed, and I still know nothing about photography. So
you get the Kodachrome green.
Yeah, it looks very greyish in my picture, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, grey-green.
But if you look around, you know, as far as you can see, it's just the vastness really does make you realise just how small and insignificant you are when you're out here. So as I said in the details, when you're flying out here, absolutely you've got to have a SAR watch in, search and rescue time, because if you have to put down, they're going to have some idea where to look for you. Otherwise, it's just a whole lot of nothing out here. And no doubt, probably the same as when you were flying in Alaska in the remote areas, Tolly, you probably had certain regulations about survival rations and stuff like that.
Yes, we did, and we also most of the flying I did up there was between mining camps and then small little airports in Alaska. And as far as notification went, it was our company handlers that knew when we were coming and going and when they were to expect us and whatnot. So they always knew that we were doing one more flight of the day, for example, or things like that. So they knew whether to expect us or not.
Yeah, well, out of here, I mean, you always try and cancel your SAR watch in the air, because especially if you're landing in little remote areas out here in little strips, you've got no service, so you can't phone it in and cancel. So it's always a scramble to, you know, when you're probably, you know, about 10 mile out, but you've got the airport, or the airstrip in sight. It's normally you cancel your SAR watch with the relevant radio frequency for this area, or that area, whatever it is.
In our case, we did go to airports which had either flight control services or a tower, but back to the mine, it was totally deep in the mountains. There was no reception at all.
Yeah.
Most of the time we were down over the river, like well underneath the mountains, so there's no reception at all.
And if anybody's not au fait with SAR watch, search and rescue, basically you got to file your flight plan. There's not a regulation you must file a flight plan unless you're flying to controlled airspace. But you normally out here you always put a flight plan in with a SAR watch time on it. And what that means is you're nominating the time that you're going to cancel your SAR watch at the destination. And if you don't, that time runs out and you don't cancel it, well, they'll try and contact you on radio. If not, they'll then contact the destination that you filed in your plan. If they've never seen you, then quite often they'll go back to previous destinations and see if they'd seen you. So try and nail down where you've been. They'll normally send the police out looking for you in case, you know, you're floating around the airstrip somewhere and you forgot about it. And if not, then they start to get into more serious, you know, search routines.
Unless we're going for a real short field landing, I'll get it down.
Yeah, then it's obviously a lot slow. I mean, the beauty of this King Air is, under full flaps, you can fly it down, you know, to below 80 knots. Well, you know, at least 80 knots, as long as you're keeping those wings level. All right, so it's only a touch and go here, so we'll get back on track. If everybody can bunch up, I'll just do an orbit, give everybody a chance to catch up. And we're heading off more southwest again now.
Yeah, this is beautiful right here where I'm at. There's all the different colors. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. That's it. For years I've thought, nah, people won't be interested in, you know, flying this. They want to see Swiss Alps and deep gorges and that, but I thought I'd risk it, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. All right, guys, just if you can all get to about, climb up, in fact, where I am, I'm just going to orbit a bit. We can all get, and I should have told you this earlier, my apologies, my bad. We can all get to around about 10,000 feet, just a better view of something. Now, if we're all at 10,000, the reason I wanted to tell you here is not to show you a land feature, but to tell you that in fact, if you make a heading now of, where am I heading? Due south, you've just had total engine failure, both engines. Grab the props. And you're going to see there's what I suggest is probably your ideal landing spot.
Kings Creek Airport.
No. The ideal landing spot right here is a heading of 120. You're going to see a big white clay pan with like a horseshoe ravine the other side of it. Can you see that?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, what you got to do now with 2 dead engines, totally feathered, which is really nice. Well, not nice, but it's quite good on the sailboat to look out and see 2 props just not moving. Your job now, and get your gear down, because I find sometimes once you're absolutely dead stop, the gear won't come down. Get your gear down, and your job now is to work out your approach and descent so that you can land on that, what looks like a postage stamp, which up here, but in fact is quite an expansive area to land on.
Right.
So we've all got deathly silence with 2 stop props, have we?
Yeah, my gear won't go down.
Sorry?
My gear won't go down.
Yeah, well, put your feather up, put your props full forward, and see if they'll come down with the props windmilling.
Yep, that'll do it.
There you go.
This white spot just kind of west of the horseshoe?
Yes, that's correct. Well, yeah, just to the right of the horseshoe, in front of it, and to the right.
There we go, yep.
Doesn't look big, but it's it'll more than do it, because don't forget you've got no reverse thrust. You've got to get this approach just right, because you get no second chances. So side slip, overfly and orbit over it, or whatever you want to do to get in.
Sort of this
Definitely.
sort of whitey, it's this whitish area, is it?
Yeah, it's got a dry creek bed running around, loops around it. Smitty's going in now, if anybody can see Smitty, and I'm going straight in on a side slip.
I think I was aiming for the wrong place.
Yeah, well, you should have enough height to still remedy that.
Yeah. There's a flat area in front of me anyway, I have to put down.
Yeah. Smitty's flying away from it. How come you're flying away from it, Smitty? Oh,
I'm heading right
turned
for
around. Yeah. Yeah, you're
What's the
looking good
best
now.
glide? What's the best glide speed?
Oh, it depends what you're doing. I mean, yeah, like I'm in a side slip at 150 knots and dropping down pretty rapidly now through 120.
Yeah.
And that's the reason.
No,
I'm
if you're
fast,
trying to maintain
lose the
height, what's the best glide speed?
Oh, maintain height. Oh, I don't know. I've never really. I don't know. Probably 100 knots, something like that. 110.
Right.
And that's a bit of a guess. Right, Smitty's down safely. I'm down safely.
I don't know if you call it safety. That was pretty bumpy down here.
Oh, I'm just laughing. Oh dear. Fly.
See, my gear lever is down, but apparently my gear is not.
Yes, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, you've got to put your prop up for the gear to drop.
Yeah, but
Really?
even then,
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't. Well, it shows it's down. It'll be in red, but it doesn't show the 3 greens. That's probably what you're looking at.
Yep.
I'm just coming back up to see everybody else and make sure everybody else knows where they're going.
And my left prop won't feather the second time. I've got it in the full feather position, the engine's off, and it's turning and the right one's not.
Yeah, if your gear is not properly down, you're going to hear it. You're going to land all right. And even back to black, if you do a nice smooth landing, you won't go back to black. But you'll hear this horrible scraping sound of your belly going along whatever you're landing on.
Yeah.
So
Right, we've got.
Gunny,
Yes, reset by any means. See what it's like when you land this time.
yeah. I mean, this looks flatter here. The side of the mountain that we landed on a fair bit earlier, the first one, was quite dimply.
Oh yeah, it was, and the telemetry that Microsoft Flight Sim puts out is amazing, and you'll get every bit of telemetry.
Next
I'm-
little
I'm
rough
coming in,
announcing the crap out of me.
Is it? Well,
I'm coming in right behind Reset.
I can see Oz Hero. So that was really throwing around, was it, Reset? Point on the way to Kings Canyon. We're going to, from here, join back on track. So we'll go back to basically where we lost our engines, then get back on track from there, or maybe just to the west of there. And you'll see in after Gosse Bluff, and we'll take off now, by the way. It's Knife Edge, and even the sim they show it very well, and that the photo shows just how distinct it is. You see that sort of real knife edge ridge that runs along.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're heading off to Kings Canyon Airport, and Kings Canyon really is one of the 3 points of a triangle out this way. You've got Kings Canyon, you've got the Olgas, and you've got Ayers Rock. And you know, they're all sort of within half a day's driving distance of each other. Well, the Olgas to the rock is only about an hour drive, hour and a half drive, an hour drive. From Kings Canyon to the rock's probably about a 3.5, 4 hour drive. But there's 3, I suppose, big name tourist destinations out this way.